Sometimes I make rash decisions. Sometimes I have to. If someone comes to me just before a service starts and asks if they can stand up and say something, I have to make a decision. And normally in that situation, the decision will be for me to respond negatively. No, you can't possibly do that. Change what I've got planned in my head. Sometimes I see shiny things on the internet and end up buying stuff that I don't really want or need. I make quick decisions, and often my rash decisions are not my best ones. I like to have time to be able to carefully consider things. This week, the Western Church remembers what we sometimes call Holy Week. It's the week that starts with Jesus riding into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey and the crowds gathering round and praising him and welcoming him as king. It goes on with Jesus causing a ruckus in the temple. He spends time with people in Jerusalem. He spends time teaching and caring for people. He eats a special meal with his friends on the Thursday evening, and he goes off to pray in the garden alone. Then on Friday, after he is arrested, he is beaten and crucified. He dies. And then on Easter Sunday, we remember the women who go and find Jesus' tomb empty, and Mary being the first one to meet the risen Jesus, alive once more. And each Easter I read the story, and inevitably there is something new about the important events of this week that strikes me. And today I was reading Mark 11 and something struck me there. Jesus has just come into Jerusalem on the back of that donkey. The following day, the Monday, he was going to go into the temple, and in his anger, he overturns tables of people who are buying and selling in the place that was set aside for worship in the temple courts. He overthrows their tables. He kicks them out. He won't let anyone bring their goods and stuff in to the temple. He wants it to be restored to being a house of prayer where people can connect with God. But before that happens, on that Sunday night, after he rides in, there's this one verse, a little detail. Mark chapter 11, verse 11. It says, Jesus entered Jerusalem and went into the temple courts. He looked around at everything, but since it was already late, he went out into Bethany with the 12. Jesus went into the temple. He looked around. He saw that space that was reserved for worship being clogged with people buying and selling. He saw this thing which made him angry, which must have set his heart ablaze. The injustice that people couldn't come and worship God because of everything that was going on. And even though he was angry, he saw this corruption and injustice. He walked away. He walked away with his closest friends and returned the following day to make his point and began overturning tables. I imagine that Jesus probably spent some of that evening in prayer that night, as we often know that he would take himself off to spend time just him and God praying for guidance. I imagine that Jesus might have spent some of that evening talking to his closest friends, his followers, his disciples about what was going on and what he might do. Remember, these disciples, they are constantly interrupting Jesus to ask stupid questions. They prevent people from coming to Jesus who he wants to come to him. They try to prevent him from going to others that he wants to go to. They're forever interfering and getting in the way. And yet, when he does this incredible thing in the temple, none of them say anything or do anything. I wonder if they already knew what he was going to do, because he talked it through with them the night before. This is, I guess, mostly speculation. But Jesus' motives for what he did in the temple, they were anger. He was angry, and he responded in anger. But his actions were not rash. He had spent time considering what was going on and what he was going to do. He had spent time in prayer. He had seen evil and injustice, something that was wrong. And he thought about how he was going to respond before he did it. For me, that makes it all the more powerful that Jesus' righteous anger was not rash, but was considered. That the importance of what he did was something that he would continue to do in his right mind, not just getting all upset and angry and responding badly, like maybe some of us might. I think maybe we need to think on Jesus' example and do the same. Not to react rashly in our anger, which can often lead to us making mistakes, but that we should prayerfully consider injustice and evil and pain, to take time to seek God's wisdom and the wisdom of others. And then once we have done so, once we are sure that our anger is righteous, in line with the heart of God, then we should act. I wonder which part of this you find the hardest. Do you find it most difficult to take a step back and reflect when you've seen something that has upset you? Or do you find it more difficult to actually do something about the thing that has caused you anger? I wonder what difference taking time in prayer might make to the way you respond.